to talk about some help and advice about fretboard mapping, okay? The guitar is not an instrument that gives away its secrets particularly easily. So we have this massive, particularly on a solid body electric guitar, we've got this massive long neck here, and all we have really is positional information. Whereas if we look at a piano, we can see where middle C is, if we know what we're looking for. We can start to see where the diatonic scales are, and so on and so forth. Scale construction becomes very graphical, you know. If I'm playing in C, I can go, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, there's a triad, and so on. On a guitar, we have to use a little bit more, I suppose, just hard work. And fretboard mapping is a big deal for, I think, almost all guitarists wanting to learn to see this instrument more, not just as a collection of shapes and riffs, but as an instrument. And that's one of the reasons why the guitar is a very straightforward instrument to pick up, but a very difficult instrument to master. And I think most people associate this kind of understanding with jazz guitarists, but jazz guitarists aren't the only people who have this kind of understanding. And I think anybody who takes the instrument seriously, regardless of what style of music they play, are going to have to get into this kind of stuff. So, aside from that, the other thing is I've got the world's dweebiest t-shirt on today. I mean, well, actually, there's some stiff competition for some of my other t-shirts. But you can see that these instruments here, the lutes, this is actually a sort of hundreds of years ago. These were the instruments that you might be playing. There's a guitar down here somewhere. There you go. Sorry for that. But yeah, you can see the sort of description of where the notes are, and you can see the fretboard diagrams and everything. And this is the kind of language that's familiar right away to guitarists. And the reason why I show you this is because actually it's always been a problem. There's been no time really where guitarists were considered particularly good sight readers. There's always had trouble understanding the neck. And actually, one of the things that we get from this era is the irregular tuning of the guitar, okay, which is perhaps one of the biggest problems we have. It's just to understand, that the shapes don't stay the same, okay. If we were all tuned to perfect fourths, and there are people who do that, our shapes would stay the same. This would always be a major chord, for instance, but because we have this kind of this intervallic thing going on where we have like perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, third, perfect fourth, it's always going to muck our shapes up slightly. So that's the first thing to realise, okay? The second thing is, I think, it's really important to take simple bits of information. I think, people I know that I did spend a lot of time, kind of training ourselves to play positions. Or whatever. And that, I think, is too much information, okay? I don't think that helps you understand the neck. I think, you can get into muscle memory or whatever, but I think when you come to the point where you start to want to understand this stuff, muscle memory isn't as important, okay? We have to understand things as being notes on the neck. So my suggestion would be to work with simple amounts of information. So for instance, let's just start with a triad. So if I start with the note 1 here, let's do a C major triad. So this is C. So that's our note, 3rd fret on the A string, or on the 5th string. And then, a major triad is something you can hear, ba 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 bum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. So we can then find our bearings by ear. And what I suggest doing is just finding all the different positions you can of that particular next octave up. Yeah, and getting as many different tri positions as you can, and then also some of them you're going to be able to play all the notes at the same time. Some of them you won't. The ones that you can play all the notes at the same time are useful as chords. And that's another one, right? Okay, so this is certainly not something that's to do with jazz. I mean, it's something which we should all learn, because all Western music is based on triads, right? That is a very good exercise. You can then start naming the notes. C, E, G, C, E, G. And what I'd like to sort of focus specifically on is naming the intervals. So it's 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. And an interval names are useful because these stay the same. So if I then move up to E flat, which is my second finger here, I go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. The shapes remain the same, they've just been transposed up the neck. Which is an obvious feature of the guitar, compared to something like the piano. Okay, so doing that kind of mapping, and then you have different notes, of course. So you have E flat, G, B flat, E flat, G, B flat, E flat, G, B flat. Sorry, B flat is there. You get the idea, right? Okay, so now one thing I like about these little shapes is, from a guitaristic point of view, you can actually join them together to make it what I think of almost as adventures. Over the neck, so you can get an idea of where all the notes join up and take like sort of journeys down kind of weird little paths that you might not normally go. But if you know that's a it's a C major trident root position. So if we go, might not occur to you to play that shape, for instance, but if you put two of these little molecules together, these 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, you have that, and you also know that's a C, an E, and a G, right? C, E flat G, C, E flat G, or C, E flat G, right? C, E flat G, turning it into minor now. C, E flat G, C, E flat G, C, E flat G, C, E flat G, right? So 1, flat 3, 5, okay? Now you could add notes, say, so maybe I want to add a major seventh to that major chord. 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. How do you come to major seventh? It's just like, and the semitone below the octave. Now can I make chords? Well, 1, 3 and 7 together is enough to make a shell voicing. What about this one? This one, I can't get the, but if I do that, I can get the, you see? So you can start to come up with voicings, right? So this is, I think, really, really good. But it starts with these little molecules, if you like. Of just like 3 or 4 notes. And that'll start to build up an idea of the neck in terms of the arpeggios. Now, the awkward thing about the guitar is you can't necessarily, not every shape melodically is going to produce a good chord. If I play that in that shape, I can't really get a C minor, or if I play this, well, that's quite nice actually, but that's a C major without a third. If I wanted to put a third now, I'd have to change position. Do that, or maybe this. Okay, so not every shape that works as a melody on the guitar can work as a chord, and that's another thing which the pianists have over us. And eventually you can just extend this until you can work out whole scales. And I like the Barry Harris approach to running scales, where you go up to the 7th and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. It's quite hard to say that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so on, right? So you can do that, at a C major if I flatten the third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Take down the semitone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've got the melodic minor. If I flatten the 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've got dominant and so on. So that's a really, really good thing to practice, and I'd suggest doing that for all of the basic scale and chord types. Now that's intervals. I've just been talking about intervals, but you'll certainly be able to find chord voicings and stuff based on that, and you'll start to see certain shapes. For instance, this is a major 10th, and this is the 7th. Put them together. This is the 5th, right? Everybody knows that. A major 7th together, but that also is a minor triad. E minor triad. So if you put an E minor triad on top of a C note, you get a C major 7th chord. We should open up some... So, you know, this I think little kind of elements is a really good way to go with fretboard mapping, I find. So in terms of knowing where the notes are, that's going to take you some time. I think it's really good just to start with the triad notes and just go from there. And then you can obviously start with C major and move on to G or F, you know, then go around the cycle. That's a perfectly good way to do it. But I think one thing that's important is not to see these things as shapes, you know, or fingerings, grips. It's not that fingering, it's... You should be able to play it like one note, one finger. You know, so you can actually get, you know, even if it's a scale, maybe. Should be able to do that, right? Because, you know, then you're no longer seeing like, oh, if I put my finger there, it's that shape, it's that grip. You're starting to see the notes as having an independent existence on the fretboard. It's the same with naming notes. So if I, you know, name an E, okay, here's another E, here's another E, here's another E, here's another E, right? Like that as well. I always do that with my first finger just because it helps me sort of name them. You know, if I'm in a certain position, okay, I want to know what the C major scale is. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Sorry, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Probably easy to play down there. You know. Musical words can be quite fun. So, for instance, if I play cabbage in every position, every letter of the word cabbage belongs to our musical alphabet. So if I go C, A, B, B, A, G, E, it goes C, A, B, B, A, G, E. Okay. If I go C, A, B, B, A, G, E. Okay. And developing your ear is good as well. That's quite a good way of doing it. You know, then I could do something else like face. F-A-C-E, 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 F-A-C-E. You know, you can also hear the melody as well and use your ears to find your way around the neck. And of course, after a while, you're going to come up with lines and stuff. And then, you know, whatever you come up with, so if I play a line like this, for instance... You know, finding positions where I can play that is actually really a good thing to do. You know, then taking it down an octave. You know, and finding where I can play the same line over and over is particularly good with like bebop lines. So, for instance, you know. Sorry. You know, for instance, you know, that's a bit for confirmation, or it doesn't have to be the whole thing. For instance, you know. You know, that kind of thing where you're just kind of trying to work out what the notes are. Yeah, sorry. For instance, you know, it's just like really, really good just to do that every day. And of course you can do it if you're transcribing stuff as well. Just take a simple phrase and just work it through different positions. Melodies, for instance, something as simple as autumn leaves. That's where I normally play it, but Sorry, so you made a mistake there. You know, and so on, right? It starts to build up the neck. So if you just do like 5 or 10 minutes of that a day, you're going to rapidly find that you're starting to understand the neck in all sorts of ways that you didn't before. You know, and then you could then sort of start naming notes. So it's like, okay, well, what are the notes then for that? So it's, you know, G, A, B flat, E flat, you know, F, G, A, D, you know, for instance, and so on. So that is what I would advise. I think it's good to get onto music and things that are useful as soon as possible. Reading, of course, is a great thing to do, but then you can take one phrase that you're reading and then put it in different places on the neck. The drive is always, I think, with this kind of thing towards, you know, you just want more flexibility to play things in different places. Anyway, I hope you find that useful. Thanks for watching.